Welcome to this year's Civic Tech Innovation Forum and GemFest. We're so happy that you've joined us for our second virtual hangout with this year's exhibitors. My name is Natim Kajo and I'll be moderating today's hangout. Our theme this year is Africa Flows, or hashtag Africa Flows. The theme comes from the idea that from the outside looking in, Africa may look like a continent whose problems are ever increasing or seemingly impossible to resolve. However, if you look closely enough, you will see that there are among us a lot of people on the continent who are helping move the continent forward, sometimes singularly and many times as a collaborative effort. This year, we look at how innovators have contributed and adapted to current changes in tech while testing their abilities to make sense of the new realities they find themselves in, and how they proactively plan for future technological advancements. So a lot of the conversation we're going to be having at this year's conference is how people are adapting to artificial intelligence, or how they're using artificial intelligence as a way to further the work that they do. Through this year's demonstrations and sessions, we hope that we can demonstrate that Africa flows in one way or the other, using artificial intelligence, using collaboration as a way for the continent to work and to flow, as it were. And with that, I would like to welcome, I would like to welcome you to the first, or rather to the second of our weekly hangouts. But before we begin, I'd like to sort of share the screen here, which pray should have somebody helping me with this one here. But I'd like to share the screen and play this video, which will help us, set the scene for this year's conference. So, excuse me, just sound so that everybody can hear it. I can just make it. Okay.
In this room lies a million treasures. In this room lies new and old ideas. In this room moves multiple streams of consciousness from which hashtag Africa flows. In this room, new pathways will be drawn. This room will at the same time see the clashing of heads and the changing of minds. We will give credit to the people in this room when Africa rises and stands in its magnificent glory. This room is full of activists, researchers, innovators, thinkers, and leaders. It glimmers as it welcomes the flood of, and I. Welcome to hashtag Africa Flows.
All right, so thank you so much for joining us for Africa Flows. And I want to quickly sort of introduce today's session and talk a little bit about what we should be expecting in today's session. We are sort of done this session welcome. So we're going to quickly go into introducing today's exhibitors and looking at the work that they do, right? So we're meant to have Citizen Center for Integrated and Social Rights, but they are not here today. But we have with us some representatives from Zalendo Trust and the Open Institute. So I'm going to quickly go into introducing both Lewises who are here with me. So they both have the same name, but we're going to try and navigate our way through that. So we have Lois Mbo and Lois Makwamba. I want to quickly go to Lois Makwamba to quickly give us just your name and where you're from. And then we'll quickly go to Lois Mbo to tell us what your name and where you're from. And then we'll quickly go into the presentation right after that. So say hi, Lois. Lois Makwamba.
Hello, good evening, at least from Kenya. It's 5 p.m. My name is Lois Mwakamba. I'm Communication Officer at Zalendo Trust, which is a parliamentary monitoring organization that is based in Nairobi, Kenya, that monitors parliaments locally and also across the region. But I guess I will delve into that some more during my presentation. Thank you for having me.
All right. We also have with us who is joining us here. So as you can see, we're sort of set around in weird places at the conference here today. Lois Mbo is set in another booth, in another place here in sort of the conference setting. and she's going to quickly introduce herself as well. Say hi, Lewis.
Hi, my name is Lloyd, also from Management, but currently in Dubai. I come from an institution called Civic Institute, where Civic CSO, and I'll tell you a little more.
Yeah. All right. So the sound is not great from your side, Lewis, for some reason now. So we're going to try, and when we come back to you, try and have some sound. So we're going to quickly go to Mzalendo Trust, who we've talked to previously on another platform. We've talked to you guys on our podcast before about what Mzalendo Trust does. So I'm very happy because you guys are now talking about this new the platform that you guys have been working on. Which is, I think, an extension of the work that you're doing already. So it's called Mzalendo Zeka or Dokeza. So you will sort of go take us through that, and I hope you can share on you and your presentation. So it's going to be a 5-minute presentation, and whoever is in the audience with us here today, feel free to ask any questions of the two Lewises here. And imagine they'll be very happy, more than happy to sort of talk to you about their work. So let's hand it over to Lewis Makwamba.
Thank you. So allow me to share my screen with my brief presentation. If that's okay. Yeah. Please tell me what your view is like.
Yes, I can see you. So that's great. Fantastic.
Yeah, great. So quickly take you through who Mzalendo is and what we do. Like I mentioned, we are a Kenyan parliamentary monitoring organization whose mission is to promote open, inclusive, and accountable parliaments across Kenya and Africa. And locally, I need to mention that we have 2 levels of legislatures. So at the national level, the bicameral house, and then we have the county assemblies that we've also started expanding our work towards. So we do so by creating and managing civic tech tools that I will take you through, and producing evidence-based research, and leading, facilitating advocacy and partnerships with parliaments, citizens, and other relevant stakeholders. Like you mentioned, collaborations are very important in the kind of work that we do, and developing tools that address certain gaps and needs for the citizens. So I'll quickly jump into some snippets of what we are about and highlights of us. We've been in existence since 2005, and the genesis of our organization was a blog that tried to provide information around parliamentarians. At the time, Parliament was very opaque, and over time we've seen improvements. And we also leverage our social media platforms to keep citizens and other stakeholders informed about parliamentary developments. And I would be happy to quickly brush through our social media platforms, particularly Twitter, where we follow live proceedings of parliament and do so by having live tweets in real time. And then we also, like we mentioned, the networks that we have. In Kenya, we lead the Civil Society Parliamentary Engagement Network. And there's also the Open Government Partnership, where we are the CSO lead. The African Parliamentary Monitoring Organization Network that was established last year, and its intention is to monitor regional parliaments in the continent, and the East Africa Civil Society Organizational Forum. And a number of reports that we released. The most popular, I would say, is our flagship product, the scorecard, that is informed by a handset that I will show the viewers, that basically collates all the contributions made by members of parliament in plenary. Then that informs our research in saying what has been addressed or handled during a year, for example, a parliamentary year. And what are the issues that were prominent, and were they responsive to citizens' needs? So an overview of our civic tech tools, we have Bonga na Mzalendo, which is an SMS platform. This one was created in recognition of the fact that there's still a digital divide, in as much as Kenya has made so much progress. And we want to still gain the input of those people who, for example, are disadvantaged in terms of devices or technological know-how. And so that informed the formation of this platform to engage people at county level, at the grassroots. Then we have Dokeza that we had shared with you, which is a bill annotation platform. This one to address the gap that is currently existing in public participation, the current practice of public participation in Kenya, by ensuring that there's access, that people are able to give their contributions, no matter how small. People are able to submit memoranda despite their levels of legal knowledge, and also get analysis of bills so that they can deepen their understanding in those proposals. Then we have the searchable Hansard, like I mentioned, where it basically documents all the contributions that have been made in plenary. And the benefit of this is that as a citizen, as a concerned citizen, I'm able to go and see what my member of parliament has been talking about, whether it's relevant to our needs or whether, if at all, they have been speaking in parliament. And finally, we have the Promise Tracker, which we recently unleashed. This one wants to track the progress of the implementation of government promises of the current administration since we had a general election last year in August. And so we wanted to see the linkage between legislative developments and how the legislative agenda rather is informed by the executive agenda. So does it take prominence? Does it give room for divergent opinions? But also, what is the pace of the government implementing these promises? So basically, the main goal I would say about our civic tech tools is trying to address the access to information right that is enshrined in the Constitution for us. So like I mentioned, we facilitate public participation. So the issues of access, publicizing calls for memoranda through our social media platforms, online tracking of parliamentary proceedings once these bills are back in parliament for debate at the various stages. Then we have the annual parliamentary scorecard, basically tracking the participation and legislative output of the bicameral house. Like I mentioned, we have a National Assembly and Senate at the national level, and access to parliamentary information. So plenary sessions are tracked by a searchable Hansard. So it also allows even researchers, academia, the media to come and use this tool and, for example, track the progress of a particular issue. So if it is health, how long have members of parliament been talking about digital health, for example, and what does that journey look like? The legislative agenda and the executive's commitments, like we mentioned, using the Promise Tracker, basically looking at what's the pace of that and in what format or method are they implementing these promises. Again, on networks, like I mentioned, at the regional level, we have APMON that basically wants to monitor regional parliaments, but also we recognize that at the grassroots level, at the subnational level, CBOs need to have the capacity increased and strengthened to be able to monitor county assemblies that then monitor the executive. So these are quick links to our platforms, our website, the tracker, Dokeza, and also the network that we steer. And that's that. Thank you. So if it's okay with you, I can have like a live demonstration of what our platforms look like.
Okay, let's do that in a little bit later. So because we have the 5 minutes, so I want us to afford some time to the other bits in the room, and then
Yes.
so we can then do the live demonstrations of some of the work that you do. Because I really want to know how you sort of go about presenting conversations in Parliament, right, in a way that is consumable, right, by people who are sort of using the platform. Are the partnerships that you are sort of engaging yourself in is a way to be able to reach, because social media by itself probably not enough, and so maybe these partnerships with other organizations, with media, with other people who are interested in engaging young people, for instance, maybe they may be useful as a way to reach the intended audience. So maybe let's talk about that later. So we'll ask those questions, and maybe let's welcome Lois. I don't know if Lewis is able to join us, because I know she was having some audio issues. Oh, there she is. She is sharing her presentation. I'm hoping that we can hear you this time around, Lewis. In the meantime, people in the room, you can check out Zalendo's website and the exhibition on on the Africa Flows website. So check out that exhibition. They are speaking obviously about Tokeza there, but there are other things that you can check out on their website, including the other platforms that she was talking about here earlier. So let's go to Lewis, and hopefully this time your audio will be better. No, not so much. It's still not there yet.
It's
So I almost want to tell you to come to this room here because there's a lot less people,
Can I
and
do
then
that?
you'll have some space. So you can join me in this room behind you, and then perhaps we can, you can feel free to take off your headset and then so for in the meantime we'll go back to Louis Mwakamba, and maybe we can do that demonstration, and then we can join Open Institute right after that. So maybe we can stop sharing Lewis's one for now. Let's see. Do you want to do? Yeah. So
Okay.
we'll stop sharing that, and then we can go back to the sort of presentation that you wanted to show us. And I want to apologize to Vicenta, who has sort of said, we don't have Portuguese translation for this conversation. I want to apologize profusely about that. This is unfortunately not something we had planned for today's conversation. So I really, really, really apologize, Vicenta, and I hope you can hear some things in any case. So Louis, maybe let's do that presentation, demonstrate to us some of the things that you're working on.
Okay, thank you. Just a moment. Would like for
Let me go up there.
I can hear her much better now.
Oh, we can hear you. Fantastic. But no, I think you were hearing her because she's in the same room as me, but she's going to find her sort of a spot for herself to present from. But in the meantime, let's do you, and then we can go back to Lewis and Bo.
All right.
Okay.
So quickly, like I mentioned, that we leverage a lot of our social media tools to monitor the Kenyan Parliament, particularly Twitter, where we do the live real-time tweeting of the proceedings. We share calls for public participation that are advertised on other mainstream media. We also share breakdowns of bills just so we can deepen the understanding for people. So this is Zalendo Watch on Twitter. And I've opened the media just so people could see what it is I'm talking about. Here's an example about a call for public participation. There's some regulations that have been put out by the ministry. So that's there. We make sure, because we recognize that not everyone reads the local dailies. The reach is very limited, and so social media can be a way to broaden that reach. And then this is an example of a summary of the business that was considered by Parliament during that week. So you can see in a very quick glance, you can see the bills that were passed, discussed, etc. And just a demonstration of the live proceedings that I'm talking about. Here's a senator moving that a bill she sponsored is read a third time. So that's on the social media. Then we have the handset that I was talking about. It's a searchable handset. So if you were to say you're a researcher and you're interested, let me look for a buzzword, state capture. So we come here and say state capture. So the purpose of this is that we're able to track these discussions at the parliamentary level. So how did they manifest? Was it through a bill? Was it just through off-the-cuff conversations? Were they trying to propose something? So this enables you to track, to see the trajectory of it and in a chronological manner. And so you're able to see this information and it's easily available as opposed to combing through the many PDFs that are on the parliament website. Yeah,
Could
finally,
I ask, yeah, okay, go ahead. Could you do that last one, and then we can sort of ask a question, and then we'll go to Lewis.
Yes. So the most recent one I was talking about is the promise tracker, and it's broken down into different stages, depending. That's just based on the manifesto that the current administration offered during the campaigns. So we have noted that there's first 100 days, short-term goals, medium-term goals, long-term, and new goals that the president puts forward after being sworn in. And here is a quick dashboard of the progress. So these are just among of the, one of the many tools that we we have developed and are currently using.
I think one of my favorite things is really finding out where what's where information comes from, right? So who's contributing towards this data that we're putting out there? And I'm very interested in sort of how you go about gathering the data that you do and sort of then share it with people. Sometimes, and I think I was saying this in last week's hangout, that I'm very wary of people saying we gathered information from Parliament or from these people that we're reporting on, and we're just then regurgitating it to our audience. How do you make sure that the information that you share is legit, first of all, and that it's something that people can use in any case?
Okay, so I will speak for the handset, for example, and I think first of all, I'd give kudos to our Parliament for trying to be up to date. I mean, as far as updating information, but like you mentioned, there's the need for caution to make sure that the information is accurate. So it helps that internally we monitor the proceedings religiously every day. So going through the Hansard records, it's easy to tell that this information is accurate. So we're
Right.
able to pick out the discrepancies. Yes, exactly.
All right. And I think one of the things that we're trying to explore in this conference is sort of the workings between private people and Parliament and people in sort of public organizations. Do we see, and I think I'm very curious about, do we see people actively contributing information and going, here, we're very transparent about what we're doing, and do those things, do people trust that information, first of all? And do we see, and what sort of change do we see in as far as when we put out information for people to use? Do we see a lot more people being interested in parliamentary actions? Or are we seeing a lot more people voting based on the stuff that you tracked? So you said now you're promising, so you're tracking the promises that they made. Are we seeing a lot of people then sort of react to the promises that they're seeing and have not been fulfilled or have been fulfilled? Is there a difference that you can see in the 18-year history of the platforms in sort of from young people or people who are voters in general?
Yeah. Yes, I believe I can say confidently that there has been a lot of change over time. And this is on both sides, both the citizens and even the institutions, where, like I mentioned, our parliament was riddled with a lot of opaqueness. And so that push, at least with organizations like Mzalendo that monitor parliament, sort of compelled them to start now volunteering that information and on a timely basis and very comprehensively. As for citizens, the interest has definitely grown over time. And we're talking even, there's usually that big assumption about youth apathy. But even if you look at the conversations on platforms like TikTok, unlikely platforms that you wouldn't imagine that political conversations are taking part, and some of our report findings are making their way to those platforms. So there's even initiative by citizens to consume the information themselves, regurgitate it, and even share it among their circles. So the interest has definitely grown, and it helps for us to be consistent. Then they are kept informed, and there's more interest about, because we get a lot of questions of where is the progress of this bill? Was it passed? Did this MP speak about this? So yeah, I can say that with confidence.
Yeah, and I think when we come back to you, I think I'd really want to sort of find out if you guys are interested in making information a lot more accessible. So a lot of information that we have is on apps right now. And I know you guys are on like a website, and maybe let's look at the difference between a website and an application, whether or not there is a difference in how people consume that information, whether that's more accessible than a website. Maybe let's explore that question when we come back later. I want to go to Lewis very quickly. Lewis, I hope you are okay there where you are and we can hear you. Maybe say hello.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now. Fantastic.
Okay, fantastic. Cool. So I want to tell you a little bit about the Open Institute and what we do. Please confirm you can see my screen.
So I can see your screen.
Okay, fantastic. So the Open Institute is a civil society organization. We like to say civic tech. And the reason why we say that is because our primary work revolves around building technology resources that are able to support communities, government, and other civil society organizations. And why this is important is because with tech, then you're able to collect data, you're able to increase efficiency, and with tech, you're able to do more with less. So we are 12 years old, no, 11 years old right now. And I just want to talk about the three pillars that really make up the work that we do. First and foremost is active citizenship. Why active citizenship is because we believe that for us to be able to do what we do is we need to collaborate. And so the first group of people that we endeavor to collaborate with citizens. And our focus is on empowering citizens and giving them the courage and the confidence to use their voices to be able to partner with the government, to be able to ask questions, and to be able to collaborate with the government so that they can enhance the quality and the level of service delivery. So under active citizenship, we have a couple of programs. The first one is what we call the CBO Data Leaders Fellowship Program. And in this program, what we did is a program that we ran this year. And what we did is we had CBOs and CSOs from across the different counties. This year, we had about 22 counties being represented. And the CBOs and the CSOs that came on board, we took them through an intense data governance capacity building program so that they would, number one, be able to appreciate what data governance is. Number two, they'll be able to appreciate the impact of data governance on their day-to-day work. And then number three, they'll be able to appreciate and understand how can they collaborate with government to ensure that, number one, government is making data-driven decisions, but also they are adhering to the Data Protection Act and adhering to issues of data rights. The second program we have is what we call the Ability Program. And here what we do is map out cities and towns with the objective of identifying how many of them are aligned to the needs of people with disabilities. So that then these people's rights are not infringed, but they actually feel inclusive, especially within public spaces and government spaces. Part of government commitments to offer service delivery include inclusion. And so our ability program just helps us to map that out and document and identify which areas the government needs to either review its infrastructure so that things we also have what we call the Mauna Space, and this is a hub that we have created where we bring together community-based organizations. And these are really organizations that really work at the grassroots level and build their capacity, different capacity. So we build organizational capacity, individual leadership capacity. Also, we build their capacities on issues of data governance and programming. Because one of the things we realized is that the way the developmental world works right now is that funders will probably give their funds to organizations like ourselves and maybe then trust its employees. And then after that, funding doesn't trickle down to grassroots level. And there's only so much institutions like ourselves can be able to do. So we see that if we were able to build capacity, grassroots organizations, then they would be ready and more equipped to receive funding and be able to do more in terms of scaling of their programs. And then, of course, the last program we have in this is what we call open spaces. And this specifically speaks to the miners with the community that is largely not thought about. I want to quickly talk to you about responsive governance. And here under responsive government, what we've done is create two major programs. One is actually a dashboard that we call Open County. So when you have time, please just go on Google and check out Open County. And what we did here is we created a dashboard that collects all the data of the 42 counties. I think in other regions, county would almost be compared to a state, which then would have many municipalities in them. And why this was important was because, again, it's to be able to advocate for open government so that then counties and governments, both at national and subnational level, are open enough to share their data, are open enough to share data that then becomes accessible to citizens, but also more importantly, they're able to get data that they can then begin to use to active decision making. And then we also came up with the Data Leaders Fellowship Program. And here, one of the things you will notice about Open Institute is we are very deliberate in everything that we do. We deliberately create ecosystems around it. So if we are empowering CBOs on one hand, when we're in itself, beyond the capacity building, how do we influence the ecosystem in which they operate in so that then they're able to thrive? So other than building the Pen County and the data, which I'll show you in a short while, in terms of enabling government collect the data, then on this other end, what we've done is develop an annual program that we call the Data Leaders Fellowship, which builds capacities for public officers on matters of data, so that once they have the dashboard, then they can understand and appreciate how to collect data, how to visualize it, and how to use it for decision making. The last component that really, or the last pillar of our work is data governance. And here we've done a lot of collaborative work with the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner in Kenya. And what we have done is, again, develop a curriculum on data governance, and that curriculum is curriculum that has been enshrined within the Data Protection Act. We've also been able to develop guidelines for the implementation of the Data Protection Act, especially at subnational. When I say subnational level, I mean at county level. And we've also been able to do campaigns, and the campaigns that we have done have been social media campaigns, creating awareness among citizens on their data rights, on data privacy as well. If they're data users, how do they go about collecting and protecting data? So there's a lot of work with county engagement on data protection. Like I said, there's a curriculum around there. The campaigns that we did was called Future Ochi. And of course, we have a program in collaboration with Amnesty International Kenya, where we work on restore data rights. I think just the next 1 minute, allow me to just share something that is extremely important in regards to the conversations about dating. So one of the outputs that we have done is create this dashboard. I just call them dashboards for now, but essentially the dashboard we created, especially for subnational government, the dashboard that allows them to do two things. Number one, they are able to collect all their data as per their CIDP plan, or county indicator development plan. Number two, they are able to use this dashboard as an M&E tracking toolkit. Why this was important is because we realized that government, especially local level, every election, and I think Lois alluded to it, they make promises and they develop these plans, fantastic plans on paper, but they don't have the capacity with the tools to then track once they begin to implement those projects. So the dashboard for us allows us to give them an opportunity to track. And what we've done is when we track, then number one, they have data that is able to tell them stories. They are able to understand the needs of their people. they're able to make data-driven decisions because they're able to say, in this constituency, we have this population, so these are the number of ECD schools or schools that we need to build, or this is the population, this is our bed capacity in terms of health facilities, so these are the interventions that we need to make. This is one of the dashboards for Nandi County. So again, if you go to nandi.data.org, you'll be able to find this is live. And they actually, last month, they won a global award on OGP for their transparency and being able to collaborate with civil society to showcase and to present their data. And this has helped them with decision making. So now we have part of the impact of our work is a county like Nandi is able to go to the county assembly when they are developing budget and authoritatively say, this year, our focus on CapEx expenditure is going to be in this particular areas because the data we have tells us that what we require is not additional buildings, either in terms of health facilities or learning centers, but what we require is to invest in human resource. And that has created much of our impact. The last thing, these are just to show you what kind of the dashboards and the summaries of data that we are able to visualize. We're also able to track projects at county level, and we're able to do geolocation of projects. And we are able to even track up unto a municipality level. And we're able to do cross-tabulation where we're able to say, this is the money allocated for projects in this sector. This is how much has been used. This is the level of participation with this project. This project speaks to the needs of the women, the youth, and the children. So we are also able to showcase what projects governments are doing and who they are targeting. And then finally, we have a data collection toolkit that we call Sabati. This is a toolkit that is able to collect data offline. So it's a very, very brilliant toolkit because you don't need to have internet connection. You can collect data, upload it later, and it's an open source. It's open to everyone, and that's part of the work. So I think let me stop here because I know the time is up, and then open it.
But you know what? We entertained you because I think also we used so Lewis also used some of your time, I think, the other time. So in any case, what I'm very interested in sort of because what I'm seeing is that there are sort of different stakeholders that you are catering to here. And that the data or sort of the service that you offer is received differently at different levels, right? And
Did you also lose him? Yeah.
Did you lose me?
Yes,
Your screen just went blank a bit and we can't hear you.
All right, so lost connection for a little bit, Lewis. So I think my question was, who in your audience is who are you sort of when you in your own assessment is more interested in sort of the services that you offer? Are you finding that a lot of people in economic planning, for instance, are interested in using it as sort of as a change management tool, or are you finding a lot of people are interested in sort of how to navigate data, and so the grass.
I think it's freezing. Royce, are you there?
Yeah, I can see you, but I can't see nothing. He's back now.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. So we're clearly having connection issues here by my side. So I don't know if you guys even heard anything I said because I went on and on. So I probably need to start afresh and talk about.
You were
and sort of
talking about
raise
the users, I believe, who among the audiences benefits from their data.
Yes, yes. So I was very interested in, yeah, I was interested in sort of how the audiences receive the services that you offer and who is more interested in the service that you offer. And do they find it sort of useful for the work that they do? Because I imagine you mentioned that some people use the data for economic planning. Do they find it useful for the work that they do in sort of your assessment?
Yes. So different players have different interests. So you have
Mhm.
the staff at economic planning, obviously, because planning and M&E is one of their priority roles, then they get very interested. Then you have the county executive, which also then gets very interested because now they are able to receive data and have this data on their dashboard that they can then use for decision making for resource allocation. We have citizens who right now are interested in the data because they are able to put counties to task. They're able to see how the county is spending the money, the budget, and they can be able to
Right.
become active participants when there's public participation. And of course, for civil society organizations, because we also work with them, then they are very keen on using our data collection toolkit because it helps them collect data even in the remote parts of their country. And we've had organizations across Africa use it. Yes.
Very interested as well in so I think Mzalendo, I think what I said before, that do you find that, because I when I look at sort of your website and sort of the information that you put up, there's quite a lot of information that you put out. Is there a way, or are you guys finding that there are ways that you can condense information in a way that is understandable to the people that you give? So a lot of people, and maybe this is not what you're trying to do. Maybe you're trying to give people the data as raw. Have you then considered to use visual effects as a way of helping people understand what's happening? Is there a way around that?
Yeah, absolutely. We have. And it's like you mentioned, taking cognizance of the fact
Did I
that
lose you guys again?
you're here. I can hear you. Can you hear me? I think it dropped off. Let's wait for him.
Everybody left for a minute because of the connection. I'm back again.
Can you hear us?
You guys can hear me?
Yeah. Yeah. So you can hear us clearly?
I'm really sorry about the connection today.
No worries. We'll work through the challenges.
Yes, I can hear you, Louis.
Yeah. So like I was
Okay. So
explaining,
back to you.
yeah, like I was explaining, we are very aware of the technological gaps, and this is in terms of understanding the content of the bill, properly engaging it, and even submitting views. And so initially it started in briefs where we would break down and try to explain what the contents of the bill are in layman. But then we realized that also that is still another tedious process of reading through the text. So we started exploring with infographics, with what are they called? The graphics, the static ones, and also the illustrations, just to understand, to break down in simple terms what the bill proposals are about, what the implications would be, and who stands to be affected, and it's and also a targeted approach to that. So yes, we have explored visual aids to try and break down what the bill proposals are, policy proposals are about.
Right, that's fantastic, and I think it does help. It does help because I think a lot of so my thing is uh, a lot of us put out information, right? A lot of us put information. We write articles and all these things, but nobody uses that information because of primarily how it looks, right? Or it's just like just there's too much information, and it's very the information can be helpful for people to make their decisions, as we're trying to do. We're trying to help people make decisions, but we haven't
Yeah.
really thought about how the consumer sort of receives the information that we're putting out there. I think Louis and Bo, you had spoken about Savasian, which I love, collecting data in remote areas. What challenges do you face? I imagine there's a lot with going to digital. I mean, in rural areas that perhaps aren't as digitally advanced as, say, people in urban areas. What sort of challenges have you faced with having an app that sort of works in that area, and how did you sort of work your way around those challenges?
I think at the beginning when we were building the app,
Yeah,
obviously, and this is unconscious bias,
yeah,
we were building an app with the city mentality, let me call it
yeah.
that. Until we went to the ground to test it, and we were working with the local municipalities, I would call it that. And we went to the municipality to test it, and then when we got to the remote areas, we realized that if we didn't have internet access, then you wouldn't be able to load the data. And at the time, we were even doing geomapping. So we needed to take images. Um, and the beauty about that challenge is then it caused us to innovate. So
Mm,
now we were able to come back to the table and say, hey, can we have a toolkit that is not reliant on internet? Can we have a
mm,
toolkit that's able, even the simplest form of Android phone that somebody has, um, that the should be so light, number one, so that it's easy to download, even with with phones that are not very, like you get what I mean. They're not tech savvy, as long as they're Android, but also would we be able to upload images that don't necessarily have to be stored on the person's phone, but they can immediately be sent to the cloud and even share images using Bluetooth in the absence of data. So for us, the challenge we encountered at the beginning has helped us innovate. And right now, our toolkit, the Sabaki app, is also able to use different languages. So we've been able to translate it. We've had clients who are in DRC Congo, and they're able to use it and incorporate English, Swahili, and French into it. Yeah. Did I lose you?
Yeah, I think he dropped off again.
Oh, it's just a few meters away from me. I feel like I should stand and wave and just see if he's okay.
You might have to. Oh, he's back now.
But
So as I come back again, I wanted,
I was gonna wave and see if you're okay.
I wanted to talk about because the theme of the conference is flow, right? And for me, flow is about things working, right? That they sometimes they're not smooth, but there's some flow that happens, right? There's this it's a rocky area, but water flows through that. And I think something that helps things to flow sometimes is partnerships and people who are more experienced than us. And I imagine there are people watching this right now who are thinking, I'm starting out as somebody who's collecting data. I'm starting out as somebody who is distributing information to citizens. Um, First of all, what challenges should I look out for, and how do I go about overcoming those challenges? And who should I partner with as somebody who is gathering data for the purposes of transparency in government and other areas? So maybe we can start with you, Louis Makwamba, and talk about some of the challenges that you've had in the partnerships that you've had before, or that you have now, and how do you overcome that, and sort of what the importance of partnership is as a way of enhancing flow in the work that you do.
Thank you, Nati. So I guess one of the biggest challenges I would probably highlight for someone who's new in the space is the bureaucracy. Especially if you're working as an outsider, you're working outside government, but you want to work with government information, because in some cases it could depend on the political will of the officers or the officers to provide this information, especially in the absence of laws that require them to provide this information. So the bureaucracy for sure, because even Kenya has an Access to Information Act, but still there's some requirements that you have to meet to be able to get this information that you're looking for. But in the same respect that, like you've mentioned, partnerships do come a long way in making the process more seamless, more easy and accessible to people. So us being able to collaborate with Parliament as an institution, its committees, its caucuses, has made it a tad bit easier for us to get some of the information out to the people, and also to facilitate that engagement between Parliament and the people, to just reduce that gap between them. Can't hear you.
Cool. I don't know. I'm not so. I'm very interested in sort of how Louis, as somebody who's probably from I imagine Zalendo and Open Institute, very established institutions. We've seen sort of the number of years that you guys have existed. How do you? And I imagine perhaps you're not there from when it started, but how do you now, as somebody who is established, work around those partnerships? And do you find them valuable? Partnerships with government, or other institutions that may be sort of important as a sort of a mechanism.
Is that directed to me or Lois? The other Lois? I lost it.
Yeah.
Just give him a few seconds. It's so interesting in the same space, but he's having challenges. Yeah.
Like literally, if I just stretch a little,
yeah,
I will see him.
Unless he moves out. He's back.
I want to give up now. This is what I want to do. Because I feel like the conversation has so much potential of being, but like because I get cut off, it's not very helpful. But maybe we can talk to Louis about your sort of view on partnerships and sort of their value in helping the workflow, and then we can cut off again. So Louis, maybe let
me.
Are you talking to Mbo or me?
Yes, Louis Mbo, because we've already spoken to Zalendo's experience of partnerships. So I want to talk to you now about Open Institutes of partnerships.
So number one, I like to say data is like education. You can have a lot of it, but what you do with it is what makes the difference. You can have little of it. So the question first and foremost is to ask yourself, what data do you want and why do you want to collect this data? It has to be in there. And number two is, who's gonna be the source provider of that data and who's gonna be the consumer of that data. These are the two people that you must begin partnering with, because you're not always gonna have the ability or the resources to produce the data yourself. Number three is to find out, once you've established who's the source or where do you get the source and who's the consumer, the number three you must ask, what does the consumer want? What are their primary goals? Away from the data, what are their primary goals? As an institution, as a government, what do they really want to do? So that then the data you're collecting, remember, everyone comes to the table with their own selfish interests. Even as civil society, we have our own desires. But when you understand what your end user or the person you are serving or the person you want to share this data, what their priority areas are, then you even know what data to give them and how to navigate that. And that's where the partnerships work. So for us, what has worked with us, what has worked for us is we will have the county say, we want you to help track our project. And for them, their priority areas is monitoring and evaluation of projects. Another council will come and say, we want to monitor service delivery, and this is how we want to go about it. So because we have the expertise, then we become fluid in being able to respond to their needs. If you do not address the needs of your client, I'm just using the word client in quotes, then you will even struggle with partnerships. And then the last thing I would say is, there's no need to reinvent the wheel. One of our partners is a civil society organization that we have partnered with, particularly on issues of data governance and data rights and digital rights. And why we partner with them is because we acknowledge that whereas we have a certain expertise and experience in a certain area, with Amnesty International, let me just put out their name, Amnesty International Kenya, they have the expertise in matters of human rights, in matters of digital rights. So don't try to do everything by yourself. Look for collaborators within your space, that is civil society. Look at collaborators at grassroots level, and then find ways to collaborate with your data sources and your data users, your primary. That's the only way then you can develop meaningful partnerships.
Yeah, I think that's very interesting. I think it's something we keep saying as the Civic Innovation Network. We have this database that we put up on our website with case studies from different organizations across the continent. And also there's this exhibition that people can go check out. I think those are valuable as a way of, again, so what Lewis and Bo was saying, that you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can also learn from other people. So research is very important as well as a way of like, okay, cool, other people went through this, and this is how they overcame it. And so I think I can sort of go through this as well and sort of use their methods as a way to overcome it. I know we spent a lot of time being cut off from this call, but I hope people find it valuable. And if you're watching this on our YouTube, please check to see the exhibition from Open Institute and Zaland Trust. Do check those out on our website and on the link below. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining us for today's exhibition hangout. Do join us next week for another exhibition hangout, talking a little bit more about data. We touched a little bit on it today. Really, the conversation was really about data collection, but we're going to go a little bit more into that conversation next week. So do join us for that. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming through. Have a good night.
Thank you, Nati. Bye, everyone.
Bye.